So thank you very much for being here. It's a bit awkward to be here because I don't have a mic and I was in the other session, so I couldn't be rigged up. So I'll start from here. Meanwhile, if somebody could find a hand mic, that would be great. Just to start, I think some people have been in the other session, so we don't all have the same level. Oh, excellent. We don't have the same level of information about blockchain. So I think it's best if we all just quickly say who you are, what your connection is to blockchain, so we get a quick feel for who you are and what your connection is.
So I'll start. My name is Marcelo Garcia. I'm the founder of an NGO, a non-profit based in Geneva called Broadlight.org, bringing affordable Wi-Fi connectivity to poor communities. I invite you to have a look at the website, but I'm not here to plug the work I'm doing. I also have my own conference on the blockchain and crypto technologies called the cryptoexplorers.org. We just finished one here in Zurich a few days ago, and we'll have a whole global series of events 4 times a year here in Switzerland and then many other cities. I am with the UN as an expert in smart cities domain, and my background is telecommunications. My family's been doing this for the last 100 years or so, but my grandfather was a telegraph operator in the Brazilian Navy, and then founder of the first commercial radio station in Rio in 1935, and my dad worked at Analog TV. So glad to be here, so thank you very much for the invitation, and pleasure to share my thoughts.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Karl Richter. I'm with another UN initiative, the SDG Impact Finance Initiative. And what we're looking to do is promote impact investing and specifically to engage commercial capital and business in intentionally delivering on the SDGs. One of the things I do is my role is as head of research and knowledge, and we're in the process of setting up a global research council which includes currently 9 universities around the world, looking at a whole host of things, including analytical frameworks, looking at integrating impact into the equations, the mathematical modeling that underpin mainstream finance, and then also on the impact side, obviously, how do we better understand impacts? I was very interested in the conversations early on today. Along those lines, we're looking at new technologies, whether that be big data, AI, and of course things like blockchain or distributed ledgers, to see how we can harness that and maybe just keep a little bit abreast and maybe even a little bit ahead of trends to be able to bring that in.
Thank you so much. Effie?
I'm Effie Pilarinu. I'm the co-founder of Daily FinTech, which is an open source, insight-driven platform focused, of course, on global fintech innovations. I personally look more into capital markets, wealth management, and asset management innovations. The space has become huge. My background is conventional finance with a career on Wall Street in New York on very quantitative areas like fixed income structured products. And I wear multiple hats, always an affinity to my old love of mathematics and to academic thought. And in terms of my involvement right now, it's fintech, it's playing the advisory role for either incumbents or startups, translating, building bridges on a global basis, because we are in a phase of evolving continuously. I'm here with the old world, my notebook, and the new world, and we'll see which one I'll open to share my thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much. Olinga?
Do I need a mic? Probably don't need a mic. Hi, so my name is Olinga. Yes, done some things in the past and some senior government, but lots of companies and things. I retired 10 years ago, and my main job now is I'm a carer for my daughter, who hears voices 24/7, and I'm an emergency foster carer. And it was during this period on my farm that I went, what can I do that will bring structural change? What can I do that can alleviate the people, the children, my own daughter, her issues every day? So I continue to do that because I don't ever want to lose myself again in big money and lots of houses and cars. So I'm interested in blockchain because it is capable of structural change.
Thanks so much. Just a quick word about me, and then I stop talking about me. I hang out in the blockchain space since a couple of years. I know all these people who got rich by accident. People are non-conventional. They wear T-shirts with unicorns. And just a quick story that makes me think about blockchain is I was on holiday with my family, wife, kids, and my mother. We were on an island in the middle of Mediterranean, and we were driving. And my mother says, "Oh, there's a Capricorn," and we all laughed at her because she didn't have her glasses on. We said, "There's no Capricorns on an island in the Mediterranean." And when we got home, I Googled it and I saw, oh, there is Capricorns actually on this island. And what made me think most is that I trust Google much more than my own mother. And I think that's the changing paradigm that blockchain also starts doing. It's humans, for the first time in history, they delegate trust from institutions or people to machines and processes. So basically, my vision is that what information technology did to media and all these companies, blockchain technology will do to institutions that handle trust or value. So that's the story that is connected to my background. And I hang out with geeks and I code and I had done some projects. So looking at blockchain is a lot of different things. We could say it's a disruptive innovation. We can look at it this way, but we could also look at it saying, well, it's nothing but a simple ledger. Why do we need the blockchain in the first place? Do we really need it? Or is it just a bandwagon we're all jumping on?
Well, the key concept is trust and the fact that you no longer have to trust a centralized authority. And this is actually pretty hard to grasp when you first hear about it. It's like, oh, it's a database where information is stored in different places. But it allows you to look at what's being posted before and make certain decisions, such as smart contracts like those discussed in the Sutterbridge presentation and so many other things. And that's just the element that is going to be changing lots of internal processes to make things more efficient. So I like to look at that as fighting entropy. Like the universe is becoming more disorganized. The blockchain helps it become a little bit more organized. Don't give us a little bit more time. But it improves the efficiency of existing processes, and it also allows you to have business models that were impossible before. And that's more the Saracio approach of what can we do now that we have the set of tools available. And this is why it has such an enormous impact in every single industry. By eliminating the need to trust the central authority, that's not an obligation. You can still trust the central authority. If you still be reading magazines and looking at certain things. I mean, I'm the executive producer of a blockchain documentary, so I'm trying to be that central authority. And I just joined the editorial board of a new crypto blockchain magazine. So I am guilty of trying to centralize something that is decentralized by nature, but it's optional. If people want to completely ignore what I'm saying, they are free to do so. And that's why it changes so many things.
So if I interpret correctly, we have two main things. It's allowing business models that aren't there yet, and it creates more efficiency, can allow more efficiency. Other things that are important if we think of blockchain for social good?
Well, I'd like to maybe take one step back from the technology, and many of you will be aware of the recent General Assembly meeting at the UN in New York. There was an incredible conversation which has been repeated since then around how do we bring commercial capital, and private business in towards delivering the Sustainable Development Goals. And there's a question for me coming out of that, which is who actually owns the Sustainable Development Goals and who is the custodian and the guardian of the Sustainable Development Goals, and should it be the UN or should it be really distributed? So it's really down to the underlying principles and there being an alignment with blockchain technology. And I suppose as those conversations at the UN were going on and people were campaigning for commercial capital and finance to come in, I was starting to ask the question, well, who is actually going to help signal legitimate progress towards the SDGs, because everyone is claiming to be SDG aligned. Some of them are doing so with an immense amount of effort and intentionally creating wonderful positive outcomes for society and the environment and so forth. Others are just doing what they've been doing all along and rebadging it. And somewhere in that we need to signal. There was a quote by the new chief executive of Nestle just after the General Assembly meeting, commenting, and I'll paraphrase him quite loosely, but he said, you know, there's a lot of hot money chasing some very sloppy goals, and we need to kick out the free riders. And to some degree, I would like to explore to see how can we use this technology to help us do that.
Other views on why this technology could be?
I want to go back to a point that a word that Marcelo used around attractors. And the reason is that I've been thinking, you know, with all this hype around ICOs and so on, the crowd, the people are blindly attracted. That is for sure. But on the other hand, as always, the crowd is wise. They just don't know the reasons. And what they're attracted to is this concept of decentralization. And there's many reasons for that, predominantly geopolitical, and what Ian Golding talks about, the fact that every day it's kind of, the system is getting more complex, more riskier, and nobody, no government, no big corporate is taking the responsibility to manage, or the ownership, as Carl says, to manage all this. So it's kind of, without knowing, are we voting, are we giving our first votes to this decentralized process? And that's what I think where we are at. I mean, there's many more aspects to talk about, but that's what I feel is going on right now. A pause.
There's maybe one more thing. Blockchain technology can be interpreted as disruptive technology, but it can also be interpreted as nostalgic innovation, and that's very interesting. Basically, the theory is that you say it's a technology that resonates within physical and evolutionary heritage. Basically, we understand instantly how it's done. This is the value. We don't need the concept of trust. Basically, it works, and it's a nostalgic innovation. It's interesting to go into that. But you say the decentralization aspect. I just saw your last slides. You have all these separate communities. If we think of decentralization, is there not a danger that we, have a segregation or ghettos of communities? And is that something that is working towards a world that we want to live in?
So I think generally you have to understand that blockchain isn't all good. It's an instrument, and it can be used badly as well. And it is a difficult, the point you've made is actually very germane. It is a difficult line to say, I have my own coin for my town, I have my own coin for my community, a club, right? To going, actually, you're not uniting the world, are you? Now, I have to tell you, it is very easy to sell if you're selling blockchain, because any random word generator and the word coin becomes an ICO now, so it's very easy to say something coin and everyone gets it. But can I just kind of add some examples of how it's not always good? There are, in my view, kind of 4 kinds of blockchain people, and they're all contributing to its progress, and we're all mixed in these. One is blockchain, the religion. Okay, blockchain, there you go. Secondly is blockchain the speculator. I buy cheap, I sell tomorrow. I mean, just before I came, someone invested $140,000. Oh, fantastic, says, but I'm a speculator. I'm a day trader. I'll probably sell it in 3 months. There you go. So he's not believing in it. The third is the blockchain, the evolution of, it's like a 4th generation of industrial revolution, and where they believe it's actually going to change the world. And as you know, many things in the UN, the moment you meet reality, that's where it all falls apart, doesn't it? So it's quite immature. I mean, not your fault. We're the ones doing it, and we can tell you it doesn't work. So, whatever the 4th one was, I can't remember. But the point is, we have 7 guys in China, in Shanghai, etc., and Chengdu, and there they use blockchain. The government, we're helping them to actually, let's put it differently, I'm not going to say control, but put everything in your life on the ledger. They're measuring social credits of every single person. They want to know where you are at all times, and they're using blockchain. Now, I'm not going to say it's bad or good. I'm just saying to you that blockchain is an instrument, which can be for good or bad.
So maybe if we listen to this also, one thing that hasn't been said, why we need blockchain in the first place, one of the keywords that pops up all the time is the transparency aspect. And one of the things that, is often said, transparency is nice, but nobody wants it. So what is your point on transparency in blockchain, if we think of blockchain for social good? What's your view? Is that a good thing? How can we use it? You say, well, people measure it all in the blockchain. There's transparency. What's your view on this keyword in the context of blockchain?
The metaphor that comes to mind, hunter-gatherers in the Kalahari Desert. There's just a study got published that they are the most egalitarian societies. They lived in that region for 150,000 years with that very same lifestyle. And the one thing that they do have is this openness, because they're a very small group, so everybody can see what everybody else is doing, which basically means that they are very careful with what they say and do. So if the youngster goes there and hunts an elephant, the elders are going to say, oh, this is a small elephant, you should do better next time, because they want him to stay there in his place. And that's today something that societies like in Scandinavia, they have the Jantelo, I guess is the Danish and Norwegian people here, which basically means that you know better than anyone else. So this egalitarian element is extremely important, and it should always remain optional. Like in a hunter-gatherer society, you had to be that type of modest person, because otherwise it would be shunned. In the blockchain world, that same kind of information could be published online, but I do believe that it should have an option to get out of it. I mean, you don't want to be the example you just described. If you want to be completely isolated, you have the option to do that. So you're reducing the cost of having that level of openness, transparency, and accountability, but you're still letting people the freedom to do things the old way. And that's what you will start seeing very soon in many implementations. And you'll see the things that work versus the ones that do not, because the blockchain allows you to fail fast and cheaply. So you have lots of ICOs, and even jokes saying, in our conference, Crypto Explorers, our flagship location is a 16th century medieval tower here in Zug. And I joke when people come saying that welcome to Scamalot, because it's where we discuss ICOs. And we know that 90% of them are going to fail. But that's kind of okay, because when they do fail, it doesn't cost people a lot. And the money that you hear, like hundreds of millions, it's in most cases not real money. It's crypto money that is being translated, and then people say, hey, this is worth $1 billion. Depends on how you define it.
Well, that brings us to the question, what is money, what are values? And one of the things that I think you also mentioned is basically the blockchain allows a community to define their own values, and that's a big potential. And but if we go back, I think that would go too far, but if we have blockchain for social good and the flash word transparency, what are your experiences? Is that useful? What, the word itself or the concept of transparency itself, how can we use it, or is it maybe hindering the process?
I think when it comes to concepts like the impact we create or the Sustainable Development Goals, these are inherently linked into a social contract. So there's some sort of requirement for transparency. If I go back to work I've been doing with the OECD around just trying to improve the evidence base for social impact investing, there's been a big push for transparency, and there's been the typical areas of resistance around commercial sensitivity or whatever other reasons for privacy are given. And but there has been this overwhelming push to say, you know what, if you're saying you're doing good, well, it's no longer just saying and making those claims. You need to show the evidence of doing good. So there's definitely a bow wave for transparency of some sort, and I think we then need to look at it in terms of the balancing of privacy versus transparency. And again, in terms of the social contract, they're softer boundaries. So I'm intrigued with the principles of trust and confidence that we have in either the systems that we use or the technology that we use. You mentioned earlier on, I think, Olinga, the example of WhatsApp. I'm thinking back, my mother's just received her smartphone. She's now on WhatsApp, and my father was very skeptical about who is prying on that information. And we had a very deep conversation around, are we actually, as we're going out of what is, I suppose, the tail end of an industrial revolution into an information revolution, how do we exercise control? Is it in a very mechanistic way, or do we have to build in additional layers of trust and confidence and so forth? And if so, what would they look like? And I think that's what's so interesting about blockchain or I'm always cautious about the term blockchain because I think I'm much more interested in the underlying revolution, which is the distributed ledger technology, and how that is inherently around creating this ecosystem of trust, or an accounting system based on trust.
That is based on machines and processes and algorithms, yeah. Is that a good thing, that we take it away from people and institutions to machines and processes? That's one question, maybe that could be interesting, and one, maybe that goes too far, but if we think of, the blockchain, endangers a lot of institutions or processes, but also if we think there is a lot of people out there that got rich by accident, they think differently, they have no clue about economics, and they were stoned on a computer, now they're really rich. So how you address these people, like in terms of, is there a way, or do you think around having these people on board, or do you think, well, they're not interested in impact investment? Is there a position? Like, do you look at this community? Because this starts to be a really powerful community. We've seen Chuang is his name. So what is your view on this community? Like, will they be invited to a place like this? Any ideas?
One thing came to mind as you're saying this, that since I'm Greek, the god of Pluto, which is the god of wealth, I don't know if you all know that he was blind. And the reason the Greeks made him blind is that he was not supposed to distribute wealth to those that merit it. So he was supposed to be blind. So in that sense, there's your answer. And in any case, this wealth is mark-to-market wealth for now, because as long as it remains in the crypto world, it's not, translated to real world. Of course, if certain cryptocurrencies become mainstream and become what we all call an asset class, and we could have a whole discussion about that, then we can be talking. What's going on with them has caught the eye of everybody because, of course, we all turn around if they say, hey, that asset went up 3,000%, and there you are, we're all human, and we turn around. I think the point here is that blockchain is a technology and it will be used in good and in bad ways. In terms of the transparency, I want to say that there's definitely a very good impact-related, application use cases. Charity, traceability in charities is an excellent one. I find that labor markets and how you match supply and demand, whether it's lower skills or higher skills, is definitely an area that's completely inefficient. How I offer or buy services and so on. Supply chain is another area, and of course there's other. And for me, one of the most powerful ones, if it gets to scale, is the issue around atomic ownership of data. Because definitely blockchain technology enables that, whether it will happen and if it doesn't happen, why, and so on. But it's definitely opening the potential to do that, and at the same offer an excellent solution to huge corporations that have this cyber risk problem, because they are, safeguarding all our data, in some cases, of course, abusing it and monetizing it without sharing, which also brings us back that I think blockchain technology is opening a new world of incentives, to the point that the co-founder of SweetBridge spoke about this change of the whole economy. We understand the economy the way we do, with certain incentives. I come from the finance world and I know what the incentives are there. They're not network effects, they're totally different. So that may change with blockchain technology, and that's a really good thing.
And if you think of, there's good reasons why to use blockchain technology, if you think blockchain for good, but you mentioned that, big organizations, they feed themselves what interest is in a big organization for a blockchain solutions? They like looking from outside, I think, they don't have interest because with blockchain technology adaptation, you generate the acceleration of digitalization processes where people don't need to fill in Excel sheets, but do other things. It can be an opportunity because they can care about the kids on the street. But how will big organizations adopt these technologies? Is there experience or view on that?
Okay, so that feeds very well into that fourth point I forgot. The fourth kind of blockchain person is faster and quicker. Okay, so blockchain makes it faster and quicker. So companies, of course, politically, we've all, operated in or run companies, large concerns. And the fact is, you got to be in blockchain now. Just like the early days of internet, you had to be in the internet, otherwise it doesn't count. Okay, so companies are giving these firing directions, and of course, in banking, you think, how much faster and quicker can it be than beep? I mean, it can't, really, how much faster can it be? But they also fear now some revolution. So when I have a story that, and hopefully if Barbara comes from Geneva tomorrow, the CEO, who's a senior banker, she was transacting 485 billion a day on behalf of Banking England. And when I told her about this work, she said to me at the time, she said, what's the capitalization of Bitcoin? I said, 12 billion. She said, that's rounding error. In banking, she said, that's just insignificant. So it's not because blockchain represents a much value threat right now. It's because it has certain capabilities that they're worried about. So it's a bit of opportunistic. It's a bit of fear. They don't like the fact that, that guy Chandler Guo, he says, code is law. The code is law. And that's scary, isn't it? The code is law. But last week, the question of, these Bitcoin billionaires, do they have a heart? And this guy, Chandler, honestly, he blew me away. He did an interview a few days ago on Irish Tech News about us. Somebody interviewed in Dubai, long one. And he said what Serratio represents is love. Now, he doesn't owe me a favor. He didn't need to say such a thing. The fact is, they are not billionaires or millionaires that came from wealth. They are guys who would normally be sitting in their bedrooms coding, and they see the point that this is an opportunity to give them a voice, and they are railing against the system. In 2030, all blockchain I think will be all totally accepted, like the internet was accepted, and there'll be something else. Just one final thing about transparency. I love transparency, okay? But it is fearful. It's not about transparency, it's what the consequences are. Transparency says 51% Brexit. Transparency says Donald Trump gets the vote. So it says that 51% of people in America did not want Mexicans and black people and women, et cetera, et cetera. That is pretty brutal, isn't it, okay? Is that better? I don't know. Or worse than us sitting in this conference all saying we're delivering impact and making the world better? One of the things I love about Robert, who runs this, every time I speak to him, he goes, I'm fed up of impact investing. Where is the delivery? The world is still not progressed. All that money has gone in. What are we going to do? So, I think we're all coming to it at the same time. What can we do that's different?
Thank you so much. We started a bit late, and I've been told I can do everything, but I can't be late. So we do questions, and we got questions here.
Hello, my name is Cesar de la Cruz, and I have a question for the gentleman who explained about blockchain in relation to the comment about Robert. How can we put ideas with reality together in order to make such projects like blockchain or instruments, as I understood, feasible?
I wasn't listening. I thought it was someone else.
Transparency.
You need to be blockchain.
Sorry. Would you repeat it for me?
You're not on the ledger?
You did only sleep 2 hours, didn't you? Yeah.
Well, first of all, very interesting what you said, what you were explaining. Thank you very much. it's something completely new for me. My question is, how can we put good ideas in connection with reality through the bridge of impact investing using blockchain?
All right, thank you. Right, I'm trying to give a really clever answer, but I don't think I can give a clever answer. I'm 57, I'm an old guy who, this is all new to me. I never heard the word blockchain until May last year, 2016. So all of us, it's possible. If I can get it, everyone can get it. So I think there's something about the fact that the kind of 2 elements, or 3 elements, forget the protocol layer, but that you can move any asset and do not be restricted by what we all know, which is the asset of money, or, and when people talk about blockchain, what they always do in every interview, don't they? They say, what blockchain is going to do for the world, and they always go, it will empower mankind, and the next sentence is, now banking, but it's a lot easier to do hard assets like that, okay? So think about any kind that can be considered an asset class. There's a company here last few days ago.
Here, you are Likke. You can buy a tree in Myanmar on Likke along with Eurodollar or whatever you want to buy. Just, log onto the app.
Well, this is blockchain, because I was just about to say, not this company, but yes, exactly that. There's a company I came across a few days ago called Core Ledger in Switzerland, not far from here, I don't know, 5-10 kilometers. And they said, we do trading platforms where you can swap gold for bricks, commodities for fiat money. And then when I said, okay, so actually I can give an asset, which is like, I could swap, forgive me, this is extreme, but I can have love for gold, right? Generosity for gold. Now, you don't think of it in those terms because you think, well, come on. I mean, what? But the idea that you could transact a relief in a country for a hard asset, all right? I mean, that is, really genius, right? That you can build exchanges to do things which matter to us.
I think it's a key question. Good ideas on blockchain, like how can fit? I'm sure you have ideas as well, like good ideas on blockchain. How, where's...
Well, I'll put an idea out there more as a question, because it's a question we're exploring at the moment. And I think as soon as you start talking about blockchain, immediately you start talking about cryptocurrencies. And there's been any number of conversations, including, you showed earlier on the SDG coin. I think you showed me over lunch, you've got one in your pocket. In the context of impact measurement, we've started to wonder, if we start deconstructing the whole process of impact into the same sort of way that you would articulate and express a complementary currency or cryptocurrency, does that actually help or does that not help? So, for example, you've got the first phase, which is you make a promise, you make a pledge, there's an IOU. I promise to do this amount of good for this cause. At some later stage down the line, you make a claim to say, I've achieved this, I've done this. So that's point 2. And then you may be sitting in an audience like this and you think, well, he wouldn't really lie in front of a whole lot of people, would he? But if you're in a pub and you're buying a drink, people check over the currency to see, is it potentially a forgery? So there's something around validating and authenticating these claims. And then there's maybe a spin on that, which is because impact is in the eye of the beholder. It is really a personal experience. And that's why I'm really intrigued with this idea of currencies that may be programmable and so forth, because you may want that same unit of claimed impact to mean a different thing if you're having a conversation with a policymaker or the tax collector or somebody else down the road. And then the third point is something about how is it redeemed for fiat currency or the money that we've got in our pocket. And there are any number of mechanisms out there, payment by results contracts, social impact bonds, development impact bonds. The list is now getting quite long about all these financial instruments, and they are really some way of buying impact with that is locked into a contract. And so for me, I wonder whether that actually is a very useful application, to come back to your question.
Your thoughts on ideas on...
I'll give one example, and this is quite recent, in fact. I was invited to speak at the United Nations a week and a half ago by the UNHCR, And my topic was also in a panel, but my topic was refugee connectivity, because I did a TEDx Geneva talk on how to connect to refugee camps. And then you have one very specific problem. Who pays for it? It needs to be sustainable. Bandwidth is not something that you just pay one-off, you need to pay every month. So the solution via the blockchain, in this case, is to look at it from a systemic standpoint and say, look, they need the connectivity to generate value. How can they generate value when in a circumstance where the government of the host country doesn't want them to compete with the locals? You export services to other countries. And the whole solution that we're discussing at the UNHCR this month is get them to have access to affordable Wi-Fi with technologies that have been deployed for the last 20 years or so. It's mesh Wi-Fi, and it's super simple. The chipsets are very affordable. Most of them have smartphones or access to smartphones. But you also need to add another element, which is impact outsourcing. Get the refugees in the camps and in slums with high concentration of refugees and offer that to the locals of the host country as well if they want to do this kind of work. Offer them to do impact outsourcing, such as companies like Google, Facebook, but so many others, to train artificial intelligence machines. You need a human brain to do this kind of work, and it needs to be very affordable because the more hours you spend on doing that, the better the computer will be. And then you have another problem, which is how do you pay them in that kind of environment? And that's where the blockchain makes sense, because you'll be paying them on the blockchain, and you're solving not only the payment issue, you're also solving the taxation issue, because there'll be tax on the source. The governments know exactly how much money they're making, and they just take their share. And you're eliminating the conflict with, oh, you're stealing work from local Jordanians. No, you're not. You're actually giving local Jordanians an opportunity to do the same and make that kind of money if they can't find anything else of equal superior value. And you're also solving the issue of how can governments fund the basic infrastructure that I have to pay for in the case of Syria and the 5 major host countries. It's a massive concern. So the blockchain is absolutely fundamental for all of that systemic view to work. You can do all of those things separately, but they're not going to generate as much value.
Thank you so much.
Can I add the fact that here we have a huge opportunity to create completely new digital assets that right now are qualitative concepts in our thinking. For example, reputation, you know, is one, but there's many more of these. And I really do believe that today the coins that we're talking about, they're all sort of around payment, and we're all thinking, myself included, how to exchange them finally to fiat currency, because we are trapped in measuring wealth by real estate or you know, monetary assets. And you know, I have a huge bank account of whatever reputation, but where is it? And how can I cash it? Or whatever it is, there's many other things that I have, and there's no bank that can, you know, accommodate that. I'm seeing some initiatives, and whoever wants, we can talk about them. They're emerging, but that's where we're going. So 5 years down the road, it's not like we're going to have 1,000 coins, because the coins that we have today are kind of one type, I think. We are going to have thousands kinds of coins that we haven't thought today, and that's the huge opportunity for blockchain. And it's going to affect education, it's going to affect employment, it's going to affect everything. So that's where transparency and everything comes in.
Thank you so much for all that. I think this was short but intense, and I'm sure there's many more questions, but the time is running out. We're already late. So I'm sure people can grab you when we have drinks and talk to you. There's one last thing that I would like to add. Personally, I think, you know, technology is absolutely key to change the world. But on the other hand, it's nothing without the people. So like if you weren't here, if people aren't, you know, using it or doing it or educating, we haven't talked about that. There is blockchain, there is know-how. How can we share it? How can we access this? There are good solutions out there. How can we access these good solutions and not make the same mistakes again? That could be a different topic altogether. So I think people are important. If we want to adopt it and change the world, because I'm one of this first group, I'm a believer, I think there's a big opportunity. So we have to talk to people and give people a chance and say thank you to the people who made it all possible. Thank you to Evi, to Carlo, Linga, and to Marcelo, and also to everybody who organized this conference here. Thank you so much.